On this episode of the Contagious Influencers of America podcast, we're talking about babies. Babies on ice. What happens to extra embryos after IVF treatment? This controversial topic is the premise of a new romance movie of all things. Comes from our good friend, New York Times bestselling author, Kingsbury.
Other people had done movies based on my books, and I was always thankful. Great ideas and great projects, but it was never quite what was in my heart.
Welcome to CIA Contagious Influencers of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. Good to be with you. I'm David Sams. Today we have New York Times best-selling novelist Kingsbury right here in the house with us, the Homestead studio, and she's bringing along her son, film director Tyler Russell. And boy, do they have something really, really cool to talk about, because they have teamed up to bring us a film that, it's quite unique and it's a real experience. It's called Someone Like You. And of course, Karen had a book by that title, but this is going to be really an amazing film. It comes out April the 2nd, and it's a movie that the timing just could not be better, because it centers around IVF treatment, twin sisters. An IVF sort of adoption. There are just so many things that you just don't expect in this movie, and it's so timely, and I can't wait for you to see it. I've watched it a couple of times, and I watched it with my wife, and we both just loved it. So I can't wait for you to see it. It comes out on April the 2nd. They're going to talk about their new company and what it was like working together. They've hung a new shingle, Kingsbury Productions. Of course, she's done movies and TV shows in the past, but this time she decided to step up to the plate and take a swing at movie making with her son. And I want to tell you something. This is just a beautiful film, and I know you're going to really enjoy it very much. So I'll have them here in just a second, but first, let's take a look.
It's a beautiful morning. I fell in love with London Quinn in high school, even though she told me not to. If you're driving, I pick the music.
Life can feel serene, and then a single rock breaks the surface.
London?
Sending ripples through all of time.
It's been a hard year.
I'm so sorry.
Dawson, you deserve to know.
London was an in vitro baby. We couldn't get pregnant otherwise.
The procedure gave us 2 embryos.
What about the other?
We gave it to a doctor who works with infertile couples.
Saying London might have a sibling?
Hi,
Can we talk?
who are you? Why didn't you tell me?
You were born for me. That's so hard to explain.
I'm going to Birmingham. My real family lives there, and I want to meet them. Lord, please comfort this family. Do I look like London?
Yeah.
I want to know everything about her.
You love hiking here?
This is incredible. Were you in love with her?
You can't bring her back, man.
I could stay here forever.
She's not ours. She's not London.
Today was so much fun. How do you have a life in Nashville?
We want you to come home.
You were pushing me away.
Every time that I'm with you, I was looking at London all over again.
I can't change the past.
I want you. I'm falling for you. She always wanted me to find someone like you.
Thank God I do.
Well, welcome back, you two.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks. We're happy to be here. This is awesome.
So what's been happening since we last met?
Wow. Well, we made a movie, and it was
That's what I
quite
hear.
a feat. Yeah, we just decided it had been time enough that other people had done movies based on my books, and I was always thankful, great ideas and great projects, but it was never quite what was in my heart. So my husband and I, we had this like incredible conversation, and Donald put his hands on my shoulders and he said, look, if we have to sell everything we have to make our own movie. And so, and obviously he's not with us today, but he was that reason he was one that helped me to be able to say, it was, terrifying. We were using our family savings, but I was confident at that point to go ahead and jump.
So you've got everything riding on this, huh?
Pretty much.
But what a great leap of faith.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It was. It started with a script. So in May of 22, I wrote a script about my book, Someone Like You, turned it into a movie script. And the next conversation was with Tyler here, who is an incredibly talented filmmaker and director. Now, he hadn't done a feature film, a theatrical feature, but I knew he was ready. So I asked him to pray about it, and
I did. I prayed about it, and I love the story. I read the book when it came out, obviously, because I try to read every book as soon as they come out, and loved the story, sat with it for a little bit, prayed about it, and just thought, what an amazing opportunity to have my first film as a director be with someone like you, with my mom, with an amazing writer, amazing creative person, and then we started collaborating on the script after I said, yeah, let's do it, let's make it happen. And
yeah, I feel like it was maybe just a month or two later, we had a script, and now we had hired a casting director, and we were off to the races. Like, opened our production office in our own house, which was probably not something we would do again, but it was fun to have people. And we had a little devotion each day, and we said right up front, this is God's movie. This is not something that we're taking ownership for. Really, we're inviting God to be part of the process and to really own the movie. And I don't know where people necessarily were in their faith, but they all participated. They'd gather in the morning at the house, which was now the office, and we'd do a little devotion, and then they would get to work. And it was just like one answered prayer after another. Didn't it feel like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's with a huge dream like that, or a big project or a big opportunity, you have to partner with God for him to fill in the gaps and the places that we lack. And we learned so much. We had a great team, but we also knew that with the Lord leading us, we couldn't fail, because he was going to take us where we needed to be.
Yeah.
So what was it like working together?
Well, we've worked together writing books, and we've worked together writing scripts. We had 1,000 Tomorrows that whole season on PureFlix, so we've done that. And usually with writing, we kind of work in different places and then come together to see the kind of end product and work on that, and then edit it, maybe make notes, and then we separate, go back to our own places. But with the movie, it was every day, all day, in person, working together. Tyler he's a co-producer, and he really was a part of every aspect, like the script, but then it was locations, and we had a locations manager, but he was the one, taking a trip, going out, seeing if that lake spot worked, or if that dock could hold a camera, that kind of thing. And so when we actually started shooting, which was in October, right, of 22, then it truly was 12-hour days, every day, all day. And Tyler was in his glory. I mean, he was just working hard, and I kind of slipped into the backgrounds and the shadows. And I wore, a set of headphones and stayed in Video Village and just watched it all come to life, really.
Well, I mean, I think what's great about working together is obviously we know each other well. We know when someone might be unhappy with something or needs an adjustment here or there, and we have a good shorthand, not only creatively, but just in work as well. So I knew that if we finished a scene with actors, I'd rush over and just go, was that good, or anything. And she usually was just, we had so many conversations before about the script or the ways that scene should go. So I just knew if I ran in and I got the thumbs up, we were good to move on, But really, she was so trusting, and I'm really grateful that she trusted the process and trusted our crew. We had an amazing crew.
Yep.
They were all Nashville, Tennessee crew, and it just was a really cool opportunity to trust each other as creative collaborators, but also as family and also as co-workers in a way. And I think because we had a relationship and we knew an argument's not going to result in one of us storming off set, or like getting in an argument, or we knew that we were in unity and we were serving the people we were working with and serving the Lord. And so how can we make the best scene today, focusing on one shot at a time.
Yeah.
So who got the final cut? The director or the New York Times bestselling author?
Honestly, I think it was so collaborative, right?
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, it was him. I had nothing to say over him directing. Like, he didn't need my help with that. But there might be things like it was a huge job. He's young, it's his first time to do a feature. He's done other movies, but not features. And so I had certain standards and Tyler agreed with the standards, but then he had to be the one to make them happen. So no inappropriate clothing. And we had gone over all things with wardrobe, but if somebody's, there was something that wasn't quite right, I would say, got to pull that shirt up or pull it down, and that would be my kind of note. Is I'm looking out for my readers. I'm looking out for the integrity of my reputation and of the Lord's. And he was as well. But sometimes that was, where we needed to be just like, okay, let's make sure that this isn't said or that isn't said. And it was golden. I mean, our actors were phenomenal.
They're amazing, yeah. And I think working with our editor, who also was our DP, he was there every day on set, and we know him really well.
Yeah.
So
he's a believer as well.
Yeah, and I knew every time I would show her something, like if it was a completed sequence or once we were kind of in post-production, I knew she was going to love it because I just knew what she wanted. And I know her heart for story. I know her heart for the readers and for the people that we're making this movie for. So it was easy to know this doesn't feel right because I know she wouldn't be happy with this, or she wouldn't want it to look that way or feel that way. So it almost felt like I was an extension of, what she wanted. I could be her eyes and ears in a room that she might not be in.
There really wasn't another director on the planet who would have understood that. So I didn't want God's name in vain. Obviously I didn't want any language. Actors will take a script, but they'll kind of make it their own, and that's fine as long as we're sticking with the story and we're not crossing these lines that I, as unto the Lord, was not going to cross. And he understood that. He felt the same way. So, having someone who doesn't get the discernment of what the Holy Spirit is doing on set, live time, while this movie's being made, that would never have worked. I mean, Tyler was perfect for that.
So you've done many projects, many movies, TV. But this is the theatrical. What makes this different?
Well, for one thing, it was our company making it. So there was a theatrical many years ago on Like Dandelion Dust. It just had a limited theatrical run. The difference here was, honestly, money makes the decision when it comes to a movie. So even if we would have said, okay, we'll open Karen Kingsbury Productions, which we did in the May of 22, and then we'll make a movie, but now how do we get money? Then the people who invest in a movie, they're the ones who will make decisions. So if I said, look, I want to work with Fathom, I want this to be a movie that, can go to theaters, and I don't have a lot of bureaucracy, but we can just get it in front of as many people as we can. And that is what I wanted. But if I had investors, they might say, no, we're going to hold out for a deal with Universal or Sony. So it's in order to have this particular movie, and I love everything about it. Like, you are absolutely going to love it. You had to pay for it. And so that is the difference. The difference is we paid for it. So every single second, every sound, every line, every filter, every decision about which way that particular scene was going to go, we got to make that.
I'm going to move this one water bottle here. That's
sure.
Bothering me a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can give us a couple of clips to put into this, right? Okay. Put a clip in there for that edit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make the next question.
Yeah. You can have the downloadable movie that is not our final one, obviously, and obviously just keeping it within your own system to draw from if you want to for this or for any soundbite. It's fine.
So where did you tell me about the actors and how you chose them and why they're perfect for these roles?
Yeah, I mean, we had an amazing casting director, Ricky Maslar, who we worked with her on 1,000 Tomorrows with PureFlix. So we just said, hey, let's do another one. And she's very connected. She loved the story. She knew what she was looking for. And she reached out to agencies and actors that she knew. And I think we had I don't know, maybe
thousands.
Yeah, I mean, we had thousands of submissions. I think
for each role.
Yeah, and for the main female lead, we needed an actress who could play both sisters, who was able to, have lots of emotion, lots of depth, and the capacity to be able to carry a lot of this film. And I think we saw over 2,000 tapes. It feels like, we just spent days like watching these auditions of wonderful actresses, people who are so talented. We called back, I think, 4 of them. And we had a Zoom call back and read lines with them on Zoom and talked with them. And then eventually we found Sarah Fisher, who's a great actress, originally from Canada. She lives in California now. And so she was somebody who immediately was like, she has all of the traits, and obviously having written the script together, it was easy to know what kind of characteristics we needed. And then we know and had found Jake Allen.
Yeah, our male lead, we knew him, and he's actually in the Baxters TV show, which will be debuting March 28th. That's not been announced just yet, but by now I'm sure people will know that. And he's in that. So we had seen him work on set and knew how talented he was. So one of my first calls was to Jake to say, hey, are you available October, November? Would you be interested in a lead part? And he was so excited. So we had him going in, but then Sarah was quite a challenge to find her. And it was uncanny how she could play the role of London and literally be one person. And then later, and sometimes in the same day, because we only get your locations only happen, you get one set of 2 days at this coffee shop. And so she had to be London for some of those scenes and then Andy for some others. And she would be a totally different person. She'd stand a little straighter. Her voice was a little different. Her laugh was different. It was amazing. Yeah.
And then, Lynn Collins, Scott Reeves, Robin Lively, and Bart Johnson.
Just as the parents.
Yeah, the parents, they all were so talented. But one thing that we needed, as this being our first film, as a production company and my first feature as a director, we needed actors who loved the story and who knew that, all right, this is a smaller film. This is maybe, Bart has done stuff with Disney and Robin's done stuff with Netflix. We have actors who've worked on Marvel, but they all fell in love with the script and they fell in love with ultimately, her heart. And I think I was able to say, we're not Marvel, we're not Disney, but this is going to be impactful and this is a story that you'll want to be a part of. And once everybody was on board, we had amazing collaboration, super generous performances, just beautiful. It was a really great time. And I'm so glad we found the people that we did.
Yeah, and one of the things too, as a first-time theatrical director, a lot of times actors might say, no, I'm not going to work with a first-time director because, they don't get a mirror. The director is their mirror. So it's hard for them. This is going to live on. And if the director doesn't make them look good or give them enough feedback, input to be able to do the best performance they could, then they would have nothing. So trusting Tyler was a big piece of it. But once they had conversations with him, they were all in. And I'll brag a little bit. I can do that as a mom. After the movie was over, when we wrapped filming, all of those, and then we have them on film in their EPK interviews. They all said the same thing. And we've worked in movies for 20 years, some of them 30 years. And Tyler is like our favorite director. He's such an actor's director. He pulled things out of us we didn't know we were capable of giving. So it was just beautiful. They were so talented, and we were beyond blessed to have each of the role of the biological parents and then the parents who adopted the embryo in this case. All 4 of these actors were so talented, but the fact that they stepped into that and trusted Tyler and allowed Tyler to lean in toward their performances. That's why we have what we have. I mean, every studio executive that's had a chance to see someone like you says, it looks like a $30 million movie and the acting is just phenomenal. So that's good.
So what makes a good story and what makes a good story worthy of the big screen?
Yeah, and that's a really important question because, as I'm looking over my books, I've written, 70 plus novels, and now I'm looking at them saying, which one are we going to invest all of our savings in to make the first theatrical for Karen Kingsbury Productions? And I was looking at a couple different things. One, cinematography. So I needed there to be moments where you would just be blown away by the vision of what you're seeing. And someone like you has jet ski scenes. It has a beautiful glass house perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the water where this young architect lives. And the idea that there were hiking scenes in the zoo. So these are cinematic moments that belong on a big screen. So that I needed a story that had that, not just, you can't just be in a building or in a classroom, you had to have moments that took your breath away. Then the next thing to me is something that's sort of a high concept. So we can watch, love stories all day long on Hallmark or different channels, and those all serve their own kind of purpose. This had to be set apart, something so different. And of course, there's tragedy in this particular story that people will resonate with, but that you don't normally see that in a Hallmark movie or one on a streaming channel. But also the idea of an embryo adoption. Like most people don't even know that exists. That you could, have your in vitro fertilization, use however many embryos, and these are little babies or 4 cells. It's not eggs, and it's a baby. And then you would have leftovers, and what do you do with them? And the people who have a conscious issue with that morally, they will put them in deep freeze and wait to see if maybe they might need more later, but oftentimes they don't. So then they, in that case, they have to decide what to do with them. And some people just, down a sink, and other people say, no. These are little souls on ice, and let's donate them to an embryo adoption center. And they're all over the country. In fact, there are about 500,000 embryos on ice right now awaiting adoption, and some for decades, and they're perfectly healthy, ready to be implanted at any point. So that element of the story, 2 twin sisters separated as embryos, there's never been a story like that. So you have to have something no one's ever seen before for it to make it to the big screen.
I wonder if there are any of these from like the 1940s.
What's funny? We had a screening of our movie, and someone came up to me, and she worked at a daycare. So these kids are like, 4 or 5 years old. And she said that these twins were embryos conceived in the 70s. And
so
here
they're
we
really
are.
like 50.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Isn't it so interesting? It's like, it's a fascinating thing to think about.
It is. I often say, right now, science is raising questions that only God can answer. Because you could, have this embryo that's out there, and you could feasibly meet somebody, and they're your sibling. Especially, and this is where honesty comes in, because one of the conflicts in the story is that the parents who took the embryo, so they're in theory, they're the adopted parents in this case, but they never told her. And I think that would be easy to miss for a family, that if you get an embryo implanted and this baby takes, and now you might tell yourself, maybe it was us, maybe it wasn't the embryo. Unless you do a DNA test, you aren't even sure about that. Right. And then you have this baby who the mom went through the entire pregnancy, prayed over this little baby growing inside of her, and had this moment, with the ultrasound pictures, and then delivered the baby. Of course, that doesn't feel like someone else's child.
Right.
But then if you're 24 and you find out, oh, hey, you were never biologically related to your parents, that can rock your world.
Yeah, and I think that's an element of what makes a great story, is like these conversations that I know people will have when they see the movie. What would you do if you found out you were adopted as an embryo? Or how do you feel about in vitro, or these babies on ice? Yeah, it's fascinating discussions that sometimes you don't always have a clear-cut answer to. But isn't that why we watch and read great stories, to think about these concepts that are super interesting,
Brings it's a new way of defining old soul.
Yes,
well,
it
that's
is.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had no idea.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
When did they start this?
Well, when I was a reporter, so I was a reporter for the LA Times back in the mid to late 80s, and I was doing the front page kind of feature story for Sunday edition at that point. I had started off in sports, but then now I was doing features, and they sent me to a clinic an in vitro clinic where they were holding, I got to look at these, kind of deep freeze tubes. It's cryopreservation. They actually put the little embryos in there. And the story at that point was, this was kind of new technology, but sometimes a husband and wife might get divorced. So who gets the embryo? Is the woman still allowed to go forward and have the embryo and bring the baby to full term? And then does the guy then owe child support? So the question was more of a legal one relationally as to, in fact, the headline on that story was, whose souls on ice? Whose souls? Who do they belong to? So the technology's been around for, a while. But the kind of intricacies of the moral dilemma that come up as a result, that's new.
Wow. So what are your... What do you, other than to get your money back so you don't lose the farm, what do you hope to accomplish with this film?
Well, it's funny. One of the executives in one of our partners and, who are helping with the release of the film watched it and said, this movie is exactly what we need. This movie is next generation Christian film. And that's not to negate what's gone before or what might yet still be coming out, because there's a lot of different ways to reach people with story on screen. And it could involve a sermon from a church, and that could be a scene. And those movies are beautiful. And this is different in the way that it's more parable than it is a preaching kind of a story. So without a doubt, I'm an evangelist. At the end of the day, I'm an evangelist who writes books, and I'm an evangelist now that makes movies. And my prayer for this film is that it will change culture, that people will come and they'll hear lines like, the world is divided enough. You don't want your family divided too. And when they get to that, people are going to be weeping in the theaters. It's a love story, yes, but it's about a lot of different kinds of love. And family love is a big part of that, because especially since the pandemic, there has been much division in families, in friendships, in relationships. And we're looking to see God heal people and to bring them into a closer relationship with each other and with Him because of the film.
Yeah, I think as a filmmaker, as a film person, I want people to enjoy it.
Yes, of course.
To have a great night out, whether it's a date night or ladies' night out or family. The great thing about this movie is, while there is some serious drama and heaviness, you can bring your whole family. And it's a movie that...
and there's a lot of joy.
A lot of joy,
A lot of love and joy in it, too.
I think we made a great love story that you can watch time and time again and find new things and fall in love with it all over again and love the characters. But I resonate with what she was saying, because I think it shows how, when things fall apart, how can we pick up the pieces and decide to move forward, even though it might look different, even though the pottery is smashed. Can we assemble it in a way where this is a different version of myself, but I know that there's hope, and I know that we're going to be okay, and we're going to find a way to a new life with the new information we have, and with this choice to say, all right, I know that people always say, beauty comes from ashes, but you don't know until you're walking through it just how hard that can be. So I hope it creates conversation, and that people leave feeling hopeful that if their situation is broken, they don't have to get over it or forget that it happened. It doesn't just go away, but they can start to pick up the pieces and say, how can I be okay today?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. At the end of the movie, Larry and Louise are the biological parents. So the in vitro fertilization process was theirs. And they implanted one, and that was London. But then she had problems with her pregnancy and couldn't implant the other. And that other embryo was the one that was donated and given away. And they lost track of it. They weren't supposed to know what happened to it. But they have a tragic situation happen early in the film, and we lose London. And these parents are grieving. And then they get to meet this daughter that they never even really knew existed. What a moment that would be. And yet to love her enough to love her to go back home. And she doesn't belong with them. She belongs back home. That's like an ultimate picture of a mother's love. And at the end of the movie, there's a moment with Larry and Louise on the front porch. And they're still devastated. There's no question that you're still going to walk around like you're missing your arm for the rest of your life after a loss like that. But she's sitting on the porch. She's got her Bible. And he walks out and, how you doing? And she says, I'm out here. I was out here talking to God just now. And he reminded me of so many things that I have to be thankful for. And then she just kind of looks deep into his eyes and she says, we're going to be okay. We are. And wow, that is a message I want people to take from this. Like, everyone's going through something. But if you can just lift your eyes to something greater than yourself, you're going to be okay.
So Tyler, now for the good questions. When did you realize that your mom was uniquely
Oh man, yeah.
Let's just say different.
Sure.
Different. I am different.
Yeah.
It's true.
Sure.
There's no question.
I think right away, and I wanted to be just as different. I think.
Like what age?
Oh gosh.
10?
Maybe younger.
5? Yeah,
maybe
maybe
younger.
younger.
I mean, yeah, like these books would come to the house, boxes of books with her face on them, and
Now, did she make all the kids read all the books?
no.
Yeah, it was mandatory.
In order to get Christmas gifts.
No book
Yeah.
report time.
No, no, but I read slower than she writes, so I haven't quite caught up on everything she's read, but I will say out of all my siblings, I've read the most.
Yeah.
And I love them, and I started reading them really young, probably around 10 or 11, but I remember watching her create a lot, and then, these books would come to the house, or she would go speak at a women's conference or an event somewhere. And sometimes she'd take me with her, and I'd sit there in the front row, and she'd give a talk and make people cry and laugh. But I always felt like that was secondary to her role as a mom. And I, at one point, told her, when I'm older, I want to write music and make movies and be in entertainment and write books in my spare time like you. I always viewed it as her spare time. She always, and I think God gave her a grace to be a mom first. I never felt like we took the back seat. And I just I always wanted to run ideas by her. Hey, I wrote this, silly short story, and she would read it and give me feedback. Or, I made movies with friends where I would write the credits on paper and, roll them over the video camera so you could see. And she was always supportive. And I think she got that from my grandpa, who I call Papa. But her dad, raised her saying, someone has to be the next best-selling author. It might as well be you, and stay humble and trust that if God wants to make it happen, it'll happen. And so I think just that belief in me and my siblings' dreams as well, it was always championed, So I always viewed her life as very unique, and all these amazing, like I didn't have any friends whose mom could write a full book in 5 days, Like, I remember when I was in high school, she wrote a book, and it was in a whole book in 5 days. And I went to school. I was like, my mom finished a book yesterday. It took her 5 days to do it. But it's just an amazing testament of when someone's really walking in their calling and who God made them to be. And so it was like, man, I want to do stuff like that too. And it's such a unique and special privilege to be in a place to see that exampled. And I think that's a beautiful thing about believing in the people around us and saying, you can do it. If God has equipped you, you can make it happen. And also just going for it, like this film, she talks about how we had to swing the bat. We had this one moment where it's like, if we're going to do it, this is when we're going to do it. And so you don't step forward knowing how it will look. And her whole life, I've seen her do things like that, where she steps out of the boat and she's not sure where it's going to take her, but she knows she has to be obedient. And that's just continued to inspire me as I keep doing the things that I'm doing in my career too.
And when did you realize he was unique?
Okay, so Tyler, it was, where two or more are gathered, there the Lord is also. But with Tyler, in addition to that, it was where two or more are gathered, some sort of a movie or play must happen. And he would rope everyone in, young, old. He'd have, the 2-year-old cousins and the 8-year-old cousins, and he'd be 5. I think he was 5 when I went, this is going to be something very unique with this. I have a picture, front porch of my parents' house. Tyler is directing this play to the older cousins are 8 and 10, and he's looking up and he's like pointing where they need to go, and he has it absolutely figured out in his mind. And they would work on it for half a day, and then the parents would get our little paper tickets that he would print. He did the whole thing. He had props and direction as to where people would stand and what lines they would say. He would be the one whispering lines when the 4-year-olds forgot what to say. But literally, he was 5 years old and he was directing. And I said to my husband, he's going to be a director. Like, he sees story so fully. And even now, like when we write scripts, I know he's the one that sees it. I hear it. I know how dialogue should sound. I know I know the cadence, but he sees it. And so as a writing team, both of those are critical to the process if you're going to see, a hit movie on the screen. And so I knew it from the beginning. He won some awards as an author, in writing short stories when he was in middle school. And as he continued, he played sports. He did always, though. the idea of making movies, telling stories, writing music, that was always there. And one of his songs is actually in the movie, a song called Go There, and it's perfect.
Which I was like, I don't think we should put my song in the movie.
Yeah, he didn't want to. I said, it's a perfect
she's like,
song.
we have to put it in. And it does. It works really well.
There really was no other song for it. He's so humble that's what he mainly had to pray about when it came to being the director. It was like, this is, you're taking a giant step of faith yourself that way, because there's a lot riding on it. But to us, money is a tool that God gives you. And if he's leading you, like we even talked about, like, what if a COVID, outbreak happens and we have to shut down for a week? We could lose actors. We could lose the whole thing. That could happen. A lot of things could have gone wrong, but they didn't. And we trusted God and we walked forward. He gave us the perfect weather for each shot. Like, how about the cemetery?
Oh, yeah.
We had sunshine for every day, like all the jet skis, everything. And then got to the cemetery and we didn't have the money to water everything down and make it look kind of sad. It rained right up until you yelled action.
Yeah.
It rained right up until then.
So
it stopped.
It was gloomy, and it's that beautiful kind of gloom you want at
a
funeral in a movie. It's just like, and we had all those. We can't talk about the movie without talking about the miracles that God did and how it was like, all right, here we go. Like, what a great opportunity to tell of his goodness and faithfulness.
Well, I wish you two much success with this, and I know that you're going to be able to not lose the farm.
I know.
And everybody's going to come out and see this.
That's right.
Yes.
And it hits theaters when?
It's in theaters, and it opens in theaters on April 2nd.
April 2nd.
And, this is something you said about, not losing the farm. God has given us signs along the way that this is going to be a huge movie. So we released the trailer, and within the first 6 to 8 weeks, we had 10 million plus views on 3 different posts between TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And that was unheard of. Like, that was just like, what is even happening? And big outlets contacting us, and then big press, organizations saying that Someone Like You is one of the most anticipated movies of 2024. Like, you can't make this up. It's just like the Lord only could do that. And they're not saying Christian film. They're saying film in general. I also think people are ready for a movie that is beautifully clean and deeply challenging all at the same time. So it's deep. It has these, tough issues, and it's got a lot of graphic, emotional content. But it's, you can take whoever you want. You don't have to worry about being embarrassed when you bring them to the movies. And we're ready for that. And they did a big study recently. I think it was at Duke University. And these students who weren't necessarily believers, they said, we are sick of the smut. We're sick of it. Give us something that's a real story. So anyway, I think it's going to resonate. I think that what we saw on TikTok is going to happen in the theaters, and it'll be exciting.
April 2nd.
Well, thank you both for stopping by the Homestead.
Thank you for having us.
It's been so fun.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Tyler. The movie is called Someone Like You. It hits theaters on April the 2nd. Be sure to see it at the beginning of the run, because you're going to want to tell your friends to go see it, and they're going to want to tell their friends to go see it. This is a real experience. It's so beautifully done. Do take your box of Kleenex, because you're going to need it, guaranteed. This is a beautiful story, beautiful love story, and how timely. And it's just a remarkable God's timing on this. So Someone Like You hits theaters April 2nd. Do go see it. And, of course, you can check out more about the movie at KeepTheFaith.com, where we've got all kinds of goodies for you. And you can even get tickets in advance. We'll give you a link right there at KeepTheFaith.com where you can get your tickets so you can get really good seats. So check out KeepTheFaith.com. And for all of our goodies on all of our episodes, for Contagious Influencers, do to go to contagiousInfluencers.com. I think we're up to 230 or 40 or 50 episodes now. I've lost count, but do check out contagiousInfluencers.com. And this week, I love to encourage you to go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living in black and white. See you next time.